Hello, beautiful nerdy stitchers. This is Mev Stitches in Paris, back for an update after 5 weeks, I believe. This seems to be a pattern now. 5 weeks seems to be suitable for me, even though I know it's kind of far apart. But that means I've got a bit to show and quite a lot to tell. First things first, I think I just want to say a little prayer. This is for Aretha Franklin, who passed away 2 weeks ago. I know we're not supposed to have music on public videos from an artist whose rights are still running, obviously, but I want to say how important this beautiful, great lady was in a lot of respects. And so there you go. Godspeed, Aretha, and thank you for everything that you have given us and everything you've stood for. And let's be just happy about that. I also want to say thank you so very much. As you can see, I've got my world map of stitchers behind me. It's been so wonderful to receive so many comments from you all. Just let me know where you live so that I can picture that on this map. As you see, I've got quite a few pins here, but there are lots more stitchers because obviously the map is small and some of you live quite near to one another. I've filmed a little clip to acknowledge each of you, which I will put at the end of this video. It's just wonderful to be able to think of you all when I look at this map. Because there's so many of you, maybe those square pins, let me try and catch one just to show you. They might be a little bit big, so that I don't have, as many pins as I wish. So this is, I believe this is Susan in New Zealand. Hello, Susan. So I might change the pins to smaller ones, and then I'll go ahead and add some colorful threads to link the pins with one another to make a kind of a spider web, just to show how connected we are. Again, thank you so very much. This was really fun, and of course it's an ongoing thing, so any of you who just want to say hi and tell me where you live, I can add your name on one little pin and then put it where you live. This has been really fun, and there are 52 of you, I think, so far, which is awesome. It's just great. So again, I'll put a small clip at the end of this video just to say thank you to each and every one of you by name. That was the start of an adventure. Now to stitching, because it's been 5 weeks, I've got a little bit done. First of all, I want to show you a finish, a small finish. Don't get too excited. As you may know, I have started the Blackbird Designs Garden Club series, #1, can't remember what's it called, a basket of cherry. I showed as a finished in my last video, and I was working on the #2, which is apple orchard, and here is what it looks like on the model. And now I will show you my little finish, and this is where it's at. So this is #2 of the Garden Club series. It turned out really cute. I like it because it's a little bit different in spirit than the others. It's really, really nice. And it's easy to stitch, and this is stitched on 20 count Ada Rustico by Strega, which means it's a mix of cotton and linen, and it has this kind of rustic look to it. I like it very much. I'm stitching it in the called for Gentle Arts, and I have made a tiny little start on number 11. Now you might wonder why 11 and not 3. Well, because a lovely lady has mentioned that she had put that pattern right away in her wish list, and I would be more than happy to send it to her when I finish. And so number 11 is the fairy garden. Look at how beautiful this is. This tiny little house here. Where is it? Right here. In the basket is just so lovely, so cute. And those pinks are really nice. Big flowers, small flowers. It's the quirky style of blackbird designs that we all love. So this one I have just started. It's only a few border stitches. This is where it's at. I'm sorry, I'm a bit clumsy this morning. So here's the tiny start on number 11 from the Garden Club series. This one I've already mentioned is kind of a travel piece. So I haven't been traveling by train or plane lately, only by car, obviously. When I'm driving, I can't stitch, unfortunately. So I haven't done much, and plus I've been focusing on my two major pieces. So I don't know, maybe hopefully next weekend I intend to go visit my mom, so I might have a little bit of time on the train to get on with number 11. So this is that. What next? Let me show you the masterpiece, so to speak, the big one that I've been working on since late March, early April, and that is Coats of Arms by Stickerdien van der Wiehenborg. This is the full pattern. It's 650 by 250 stitches, I believe. It is very big, and I have decided not to stitch everything, so this is the full pattern, but let me show you what I intend to stitch. I've put together a PDF with only the banners and the bands and the borders that I will be stitching. So this is what it will look like once I finished mine, and I'll show you right away where I'm at. This, some of you know already, is stitched for my boss, whose birthday is on the 6th of December, and I intend to finish it by then, for this year's 6th of December, and I've got work to do. So here is my take on Coats of Arms by Stickerdien van der Wiehenborg. So as you can see, it's coming along, but I still have some work to do. So last you saw it, I had this band here was done, as well as this one, and I had made a tiny little start on that one. And so, as you can see, I finished the lion's banner, and I started, this is the very bottom of my piece, and so this is the very last border on the bottom. So, let me show you a close up. So this is where I'm at. For those of you who don't know, this very variegated floss is a Water Lilies by Karen, and the colorway is Sierra. And this very dark green is a Pearl Cotton number 12 by DMC. And the number, I can't remember, it's a very dark green. So it's much thicker, which gives it some, you know, some texture. Looking for my words. And I like that very much. As you can see, I put quite a lot of green, and then I added some variegated silks on this border here, which I'll do the same here. And so I am still left. So if you look at this and you look at the my finished version, I still have one wide border here, and then those kind of birds, and then this border, which is the same as the bottom one, to do. So that means I still have the bottom one, where am I? Here. Like at least 2/3 of it, and then two full thick banners, and then the top here, the top border. And I only have 3 months left. So I better get going. I'm hoping it's doable. But that means I got to, you know, put aside some stuff, I guess, or really focus on this one. But I'm happy on what it looks like for now. I mean, it's really beautiful. This is stitched on 25 count cream linen, very flimsy. The holes are pretty big. It makes it easy to stitch, but I really need to be very careful on the tension. I'm stitching this on a hoop. Now, one thing I need to say, dye lot. So I don't know if you'll see it, but I had one skein from one dye lot and then another 3 from another dye lot. And of course I started with the one with which I only have one. So when I finished my first skein of water lilies, I went on to another one. And I don't know if you can see, but this is much more peachy looking than this here. And I must say I was disappointed or a little bit upset when I noticed that, because I like that colorway very much, and I think it shows that it's not the same dye lot. I mean, the colors are not quite the same, and so I was a little bit downhearted, but then I thought, oh well, I mean, I'm good ways in. Well, I'm sure my boss will never notice it, so only I will know. I don't know what you think, but it was a little bit disappointing. But I thought I should have thought of that earlier. I should have been more careful, so that's on me. But I mean, the motifs and the colors are really beautiful. I really like this piece, and I'm still not tired of it yet, so this is good, given that I still have to work on it pretty much every day until December. So this is Coats of Arm by Stickedien van der Vierenborg. Now another one I've been working on a lot, which I absolutely love, is Needlework Press, A Present for My Sister. And this was a market release in 2017. Trying to avoid the glare. So this is the pattern, A Present for My Sister. I love this pattern. I love everything about it. The motifs, the way it's stitched on 1/1 and 2/2. The satin stitches, which are the fillers for some of the motifs, for instance here, and then the fruits in the trees, and those triangles here. These are satin stitches, which I'll do at the very end. Now let me show you what I've been doing. Some of you have seen maybe on Instagram a sneak peek of some of the details. Now I can show you where I'm at, and this is coming along. So this is A Present for My Sister. There you go. As you can see, all the stitches okay, so this is stitched on 32 count even weave by, I think it's Hearts Stitch. It's an Etsy shop, and the colorway is Cappuccino. And so this is an overdyed Zweigat 32 count even weave. And let me bring this closer. So all the tiny little motifs, I mean stitches here are 1/1 obviously, mainly in silks, Dinky dyes and Atali soie. And this big wreath here is 2/2, and so is the grass down here and the border. So this is where I'm at, and as you can see, I'm now working in the border, and so it's coming along, isn't it? Oh, it's wonderful. I love this piece. And I have stitched the letters, A Present for My Sister, and it's funny how while I was stitching the letters, it kind of became more of a reality. So this is obviously stitched for one of my sisters, the youngest one. Her name is Camille, and so this will be gifted to her on her birthday, November 5th. And while I was stitching the words, A Present for My Sister, it's all of a sudden it kind of became real. And it was really nice because I was thinking of her while stitching, and it made it so much more meaningful for me, and that was really nice. And it also brought a little bit of apprehension because I'm hoping that she will like it, but you never, you can never be sure. And so it was really nice to actually stitch it and think of her at the same time. So yeah, I'm happy, and now that I'm stitching it with a magnifying glass, it's much easier, obviously. And so I still need to finish the border, as you can see, and then fill in, as I mentioned, those little motifs in which the satin stitches are. The reason why I haven't done it yet is because I'm using a hoop, I didn't want to mess up with the silks satin stitches, so I left it for the very last minute. So there you have it, a present for my sister. I'm so happy with this. It's just beautiful. So this is, I hope you can see the colors. Again, I've put some pictures of details on Instagram for you to see. It's just beautiful. I really, really like it. So hopefully this will be done soon. I will, of course, frame it for her. I have no idea yet what I'm going to use, but again, as I will be at my mom's next weekend, I think I'll bring it with me so that we can start, thinking of what I could do to fully finish it. So this is about it regarding works in progress, I guess. Now I have some beauties to show you, and some purchases to show you. First off, the Find Me a Pattern challenge that I put out in my last video was really fun. I had asked for suggestions for some witchy stitching pieces for my aunt, and a lot of you responded very kindly, giving me some pointers and some specific patterns and everything. And I came up with two ideas thanks to you. So the first one is a pattern that Leah, Aviatrix Stitcher, suggested I check out, and I saw it and I immediately fell in love with it. And I think this is what I'm going to start once A Present for My Sister is finished. And this is Barbara Anna Designs, and it's called Midnight, and this is what it looks like. This is a copy, since I have a PDF version of the chart, so this is just a color copy of the pattern, and it's finished, sorry. So this is Midnight by Barbara Anna Design, and look at this, so whimsical, so cute, and it says, "'Tis now the very witching time of night." I love this, by William Shakespeare. I haven't checked where it's from. I need to know whether it's I don't know which works it's taken out of. Maybe a 12th Night, or I don't know. So you can see this huge basket with like giant flowers, and then you've got two little witches here, one here and one on the other side, and then there's a night sky. I love this night sky with tiny little houses. And can you see the cats on each side of the date? The date says 1603, which I'm assuming is the date of this quote, when this quote was written. And the cats, my aunt, so this will be stitched for my aunt, and she's not very much into cats, so I asked my very good friend and colleague Laura to rechart, and in lieu of the cats, she designed tiny little owls, which I think is so cool, and that suits my aunt very well. So instead of those, I don't know if you can see this, I'm hoping you can see this, okay. Instead of the two tiny little cats, there will be two tiny little owls. You've got keys, you've got birds, motifs here and there. These are like tiny little pumpkins or whatever, fruits. And then those quirky little witches are so awesome. So I think that, Leah, thank you so much for this idea. I just fell in love with the pattern immediately. And so what I did was I wanted to convert the floss to gentle arts, or at least to variegated threads. This is charted to go in on stitch, with DMC, and the colorways, like it's just beautiful. Let me show you what it calls for, because I've got the thread. So this is the thing. I wanted to convert in variegated threads, right? But because I've had bad experiences on looking at the colors on internet, what I did, which is really, I mean, so not cost effective, I bought all the called for DMCs, and then I went in my stash and looked at gas threads and color work and crescent colors and weeks dye works, see if I could find some satisfying conversions. And so this is, I hope you'll be able, yeah, that shows pretty true. So this is the DMC it calls for. Like, it's just beautiful. Look at this blue, it's just killing me. Blues and grays and kind of olivey, and those two beautiful oranges. I mean, this is awesome. So these are the called for threads. I have converted them. I'm not going to show you the conversion, except maybe for one. So instead of this beautiful blue from DMC, which is 926, I thought I could do it with this one, which is variegated. It's beautiful. This is a Nathalie cotton. It shows so much more blue. It's more of a tealy kind of, yeah, the colorways are not right here. But anyway, so I've converted everything, and I was really happy. And I chose a fabric, a neutral fabric. I think it calls for an antique white or something. And I thought, if it's a night scene, I'd rather have a mottled fabric. And so this one, I'm sorry, I need to check the, oh, I don't have it. It's a Pole Stitches fabric. I can't remember the colorway. I'll find it out and put it in the description box. So it's a neutral beigey color. Can I, oh la la, this does not show well. As usual, the light is very white, and so it just fades everything. Yeah, that's better. So originally I thought this would go well, and it does. I mean the color is neutral, so the DMC shows pretty well on that, as well as my conversion with overdyed threads. But here's the thing. I discovered probably what I think is one of the most beautiful fabric dyers ever. It's a German company, and it's called Tentaculum, or Painter's Thread Shop, and they do painted fabrics and painted silks and painted cottons, and I think they provide, they are a big provider for current fiber and textile artists, and they do beautiful, beautiful thing. And so I went crazy last week, and I ordered some fabrics, which I'm going to show you because they are like out of this world. Are you ready for this? I mean, this is big. All right, so I bought 4 different fabrics. This is even they only do 28 count linen, by Zweigart, and they paint, overdye it, whatever, and they sell it in 17-inch squares. So there's not much of a choice in terms of sizes and fabric counts and stuff, but I mean, wait for the colors. So I've got 4 of them, and the reason why I'm showing this now is because I've got an idea for this Barbara Anna design, Midnight, I may go to. So this first piece here is called Wilhelmina. Ready for this? I mean, Mika, look at this. This is actually pretty true to life. Oh my goodness gracious, look at these blues. It's just bam in your face. It's beautiful. Can you imagine a sea themed pattern on this. Oh, so beautiful. So this one is Wilhelmina. Again, 28 count linen. Of course, it's shrunk a bit, so it's probably more closer to 30 count now. And then what? And then this one is gorgeous. This one's called Gabrielle. I hope it's going to show because this goes crazy. Now, here we go. Look at this. Blues and very dark and oranges and greens and oh my goodness. This is beautiful. And look at this. And it's on both sides, obviously. So, I'm in love with those fabrics. Look at the splotches of orange on this. So this is Gabrielle. Excuse me. The third one. No, let me show you this first. So these are two. Now this one is called Friedrich. And this is what I think I could stitch the Barbara Anna designs on. Look at this. Like, is it fall or is it not fall? Look at this beauty. Oh my goodness. It's just, and this here, this piece of fabric is just like, it screams my aunt's colors all over. So this is absolutely perfect if I want to stitch something for her on this. And what I did this morning is I took the DMC that are called for the midnight pattern, and I put them on, and I thought, you know what, this could actually work. Let me try and show this to you. I'll replace this by the end of this one. There you go. I hope I'm going to be able to look at this. I mean, could this not work beautifully? Oh my goodness. So I think I'm going to go for it. So what I did is I put a tiny little hoop this morning on the fabric, and I just like stitched some tiny little crosses, 1 over 1 and 2 over 2. And obviously, because I'm crazy, I think I will go for the 1 over 1. It's so tiny. It's so cute. So this is my big decision this morning, ladies and gents. I believe I will be stitching Midnight by Barbara Anna on this crazy Friedrich fabric, by Painter Thread in Germany. I mean, look at this. This is so beautiful. And the very last one I also have plans for. You may know that a while ago I bought the chart Dragons of Sumatra by Ink Circles. This is a huge mess. I've got some stuff all over the place. So yeah, Ink Circles Dragons of Sumatra, which you all know, and it's so very beautiful. So this is probably what I'm going to start as a big piece after I'm finished with Coats of Arms. And it struck me that with the 4th fabric that I bought from this German company, I could do something awesome. So this is Klimt. The fabric is named Klimt after the painter, and you will understand very soon why it's called Klimt. Look at this. I mean, look at this. Oh, and this is washed out. I mean, it's like this brightest yellow orangey. Yeah, this is washed out. I wish I could show this to you in all its glory. It's much brighter than this. I mean, how beautiful is this? And so I'm thinking I could stitch Dragons of Sumatra on this fiery fabric. Yeah, that's more like it, and still not orange enough. And so what I did is I sampled a few of their overdyed Auvert soie silks, and I found one that I think would be gorgeous on this, and it is called Waterhouse. This is in soie d'Alger overdyed. And I want to show this to you. I'm hoping this will show. Like the dragon stitched with this variegated dark blue. It's got a little tiny hint of teal in it. Wouldn't it be like awesome? So yeah, so this has been like the discovery for me. Those fabrics and those threads. They have, what they do is they have a range of colorways, all named after famous painters. So you've got Klee, you've got Klimt, you've got Monet, you've got Rousseau, you've got Gauguin, you've got Van Gogh, and so it defines a colorway, which is obviously inspired by the paintings of those painters, and then they decline the colorways in fabrics, in silks, in cottons. And so, for instance, let me show you. So this Friedrich fabric here, they also have an overdyed silk of the same name, and you see it's tone on tone. It's exactly the same kind of colorway they use for both, and that makes it beautiful because, like the Gabriele, the silk is a little bit lighter than the linen, which is completely normal. But can you imagine stitching tone on tone in on those fabrics? And so my idea is that I could choose for those fabrics some monochromatic pieces, just like Dragons of Sumatra, for instance, and then go and excuse me, go and pick some colors, some silks to stitch them with. This is just beautiful. It has nothing to do with primitive stitching, obviously. This is very bright, very colorful, but I think that for patterns from ink circles, from what's it called, Northern Expressions, for instance. I mean, the Shades of Colors series would be so beautiful on those fabrics. I am just so very happy I found those. And so this is a German company. They have a website, which I obviously will put a link in the description box of this video. They have their website translated in English, so it's very easy. They ship overseas, and they are not cheap, obviously, but they are very, very quick. I mean, I ordered all this stuff on Monday evening, like past 9 p.m., and I received them on Friday. So, like, the time on Tuesday I got a notification that my order was shipped, which is really, really cool. So if you're interested in those beautiful painted fabrics for one specific relatively small piece, do go check them out. It's just mind-blowing. The colors are crazy, and I think that the inspiration there can be, just wonderful. So these are my plans, stitching wise. I don't have any progress on the freehand embroidery. I know a lot of you have very much appreciated my start on the Jean Lemoyle reproduction. I've been mainly stitching on those big pieces. Well, I mean, one big, the other one medium size, I guess. And so I haven't had time to stitch on the freehand embroidery. I'm a little bit stressed out on coats of arms. I really want to make some progress on this one, so as to finish it on time. I mean, a present for my sister, there's absolutely no worries. I know I'll be finished within the next maybe 2 weeks or something. So that's nice. And I will start Midnight by Barbara Anna designs on this crazy fabric. I'm just so excited. I'm so very excited about this. So this was my stitchy update. Thank you again. Oh, by the way, another thing regarding the witchy stitching. A lot of you pointed me to Primitive Hair, because she has a lot of tiny witches and bigger witch designs, which are really cool. And what I was thinking was, some of you also pointed me to some Primitive Acorns and with thy needle and thread patterns, and I found, I think 2 or 3 or 4 witches, like, you know, quirky little witches with a broom or a little cat or a tiny cauldron. And what I'm thinking of is stitching them maybe on one of those beautiful fabrics together, like a gathering, so a convent of witches on, or a sabbath of witches, which would be so cool. So I need to work on that. Buy the different little charts. Make sure that they are, their sizes make sense. I mean, I don't want to have a 200 stitch tall witch and then a 55 stitches tall companion. So I just want to make sure they are coherent with one another. And then what I can do is play around and put them together on one pattern. And then here comes the awesome idea, and this is not from me. Karen Sheridan shared this. She said, why don't you stitch some witchy stuff and then add one of my great-grandmother's recipe. I talked about that in my last video, how in my great-grandmother's prayer book there were some kind of like mysterious recipes to cure some animal farm animals diseases or illnesses. And so that's just, Karen, thank you so very much. This is awesome. So imagine a piece of fabric on which I would stitch, I don't know, maybe La Strega di Corvi by Madame Chantilly, which is a very quirky little witch, or Old Witch Mary, Quite Contrary by Primitive Acorn, or Spirits and Spell Witch by With Thy Needle and Thread. So I would put those witches together on a fabric, and then in the middle of them, or somewhere on the pattern, I would actually stitch one of my great-grandmother's spells or recipes. For this, I have contacted my godmother, who now owns the family house in the center of France, to see whether she still has those prayer books and if she can find those recipes. I'm hoping she will. And if that works out, that would be an awesome project as well, I think. And this could be stitched for my aunt and put in her cabin. She's got this wooden tiny little log cabin. We call it the witch's cabin, actually, at my dad's, and she's got plenty of very strange deco things in there. And I think that a convent of witches in this environment would be perfect. So we'll see if we can still find my great-grandmother's so-called recipes, and I'll start working on tiny witches charts put together. This is something that I'm really excited to work on. I think it's very fun, and it does relate to my family pretty much. So I like that very much. So this is for the plan. So thank you very much, all of you who put out some ideas here. Leah, thank you so much for the Barbara Anna designs. I'm just like so in love with it. So this is going to be my next start after A Present for My Sister is finished. I think, I'm looking at my notes here, I think this is it stitching wise. And so I think, yeah, I think I'll get to my word thing. So Baptized by Michelle Garrett Bindi Stitchy. What I want to talk about is has been inspired by a lovely stitcher who participated in the World Map of Stitchers. I don't know her first name, which really makes me ill at ease because I feel bad about not knowing the first name. But she goes on YouTube. Well, she commented as S. Arneson on YouTube in my last video. She is from Fort Capel in Saskatchewan, Canada. And this name, this place name, sounded so very strange for me, and I'll explain in a minute. But anyway, what it triggered was the place names that are in a different language than the country they're in. And here specifically, of course, I want to do a little thing on French names that are, or French words that are used as place names or cities in the North American continent. And I want to illustrate this by 3 examples. The first 2 come from, I mean, you'll know the cities obviously, but I just want to give a little bit of background. I have told you that I spent my 4th and 5th grade in the Boston area in the mid-80s. And so in 5th grade I was in a public school like any American kid my age. And we all had to learn, I don't know if it's still the case by the way, I'm curious, but we all have, obviously we had to learn all the American states and their capital cities. And so here I was learning that obviously New York is not the state of New York's capital, that, I don't know, maybe Miami is not Florida's state capital, but it's Tallahassee, etc., blah, blah, blah. And my mom would check on me when I learned those by heart. And one day, I think I was onto the center of the U.S., so yeah, probably on the states in the center of the U.S. And she asked me what Louisiana's state capital was, and then Iowa's capital city was. And I told her, well, Louisiana is Baton Rouge, and Iowa is Des Moines. And she said, Marie, do you realize that these are French words? And I said, oh, yeah, you're right. It's Baton Rouge and Des Moines. And I was already so American that I hadn't even realized that those 2 cities were named in French words, which are not places, but things, actually. And so I want to explain a little bit where they come from, because it's really, really interesting. And then I'll finish by Fort Qu'Appelle, again, in Saskatchewan, because this one is completely strange for me as a French speaker. So let's start with Baton Rouge in Louisiana. So Baton Rouge means literally red stick. So it's very strange to have a city or a place named after just like a mundane thing, object. And in all instances, by the way, the origin of the names, although they're in French, they all come from Native American backgrounds. So here it goes. So Baton Rouge, Louisiana, probably comes from Choctaw, a Choctaw word, which is Native American tribe, and the original word was probably Itiuman. Now this, I made a little bit of research, and obviously these are only presumptions because we have no way to check for sure, but it is believed that in the area of where Baton Rouge was founded, there was this red pole that had been put here by a Choctaw tribe to mark the border between 2 tribe settlements. So there was a big, huge, it is said to have been really, really big, huge red pole by a riverbed, I think, and it would actually just mark the border between 2 tribe territories. And this pole was red, and so the French, when they arrived and settled down in the area, just, took this object, translated it in their own, of course, language, which was French, and so they called the area Baton Rouge, so Baton Rouge, and it gave the name of the city, Baton Rouge, which is now what you all know, and the state capital of Louisiana. So this is very interesting. I mean, can you imagine? Well, yeah, you can, of course, but a city called Red Stick, it's really, really strange because it's so mundane, so, so insignificant, at least we think. and then we dig a little bit deeper in history, and then we understand why this specific red pole was so important. So this is for Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I thought it was an interesting story. Now the second one is Des Moines in Iowa. So Des Moines in French means, and this is where it gets interesting because it's some monks. Des Moines means some monks. Monks as in religious, Catholic religious men. So Des Moines in Iowa, again, may come from the name, from the nearby river, and it may come from the, again, Native American name that was given to a river flowing nearby Des Moines today. It might have come from the Algonquian name Moengona. I'm butchering this word, I'm sure. But anyway, so the French-speaking settlers that came out here heard of the name of the river nearby, and they may have transformed this Moengona in Des Moines. So that's one of the hypotheses of where the name comes from. Another hypothesis is because near the settlement, the French settlement, there was some Trappist monks in the area, and so they called the city by them referring to those monks, and so they called it Des Moines, which, I mean, grammatically for a place name doesn't make any sense. Some monks is really strange, but it's stuck, and so we're not sure whether it's a transformation of a Native American word or whether it's because there was some monks in the area. I think there's a third hypothesis, and it's not very clear whether, you know, which one is really real. We'll probably never know. But anyway, so Des Moines is some monks, which, I mean, sounds really strange when you translate it, but this is obviously the capital state of Iowa. So that was Des Moines. And now the last one, which is probably my favorite. I want to thank this lady in Fort Capel because she gave me some background when I said this place name is so very strange to my ears, and so she told me a little bit about it. So Fort Capel is named after one of the lakes that is right near the city, or should I say town? It's not very big, but anyway. And so this is in Saskatchewan, Canada. So Fort Capel is named after a lake that is really nearby, and this lake is Lake Capel, obviously. Now I want to translate this from French to English because it really is very strange. So Capel is literally who calls. So it's either fort who calls or lake who calls or who's calling, which even the way it's written in English today isn't even a correct way to spell it in French. So it's very, very strange. And it's kind of like a piece of grammar that can't go on its own, right? So it's Fort Capel, I mean, Fort who's calling or Fort who calls. Doesn't really make sense in English either, right? And this is very interesting because, so this, again, has some obviously Native American origin, although we're not very sure what the story behind the name of the river is, but the lake is. But anyway, the lake was obviously named first by the Cree tribe, and the name was literally what is calling. So in Cree, the name of that lake was already saying what is calling. And now I'm going to try and say the word, but the lake name was Katepwa, which means what is calling. So the French just translated it in French, right? It's just not very exotic, not very interesting in per se, but the fact that it's stuck and the fact that it's so incorrect in French to say Capel is really intriguing. And now, as to the origin of the Native American name, there are several stories, which again, we probably will not know what the real thing is, but the origin of this lake called what is calling or who's calling might come from maybe two origins, two myths. It is believed that when the Cree tribes or the Native Americans in the area were going down this lake on their boats, they would hear voices calling, and hence the name that was originally given to the lake. The other story is also very beautiful. There is a legend, again a Cree legend, that says that once upon a time a young man would hear his name called on the other side of the lake, and he was wondering who was calling him, and it appeared to be his young lady love, who was calling his name on the other side of the lake, and unfortunately she died before he could join her, and so the lake became the lake who's calling, or the lake what is calling, in the Cree language. So, and I mean, yeah, okay, I'm a romantic, so I like this story, but again, we don't know exactly where it comes from. But all this to illustrate, all these place names have Native American origins, which makes complete sense. But because there was at some point some French settlers in the area, they transformed it in one way or another, and the French name stuck rather than having it translated in English when the French went away. Because as you know, we also tried to, we as the French people, or the French at the time, tried their take on the American continent, and as you all know, they really didn't succeed much. But it's interesting to see that although we did try to transform or to appropriate the place names that were there from the Native Americans, they kind of stayed the same, even though other nationalities came over afterwards, meaning that some of them are just translated from Native American words. Some of them are similar sounding, recognizable words. So Des Moines, for instance, Des Moines in Iowa, for instance, maybe the name comes from something that phonetically reminded the French-speaking settlers of a French word, etc., etc. But what's interesting is that it stayed in French then, and I'm assuming some of the inhabitants of those cities don't know the meaning of the actual words, but it's interesting to see that Baton Rouge is just actually a red pole, or a red stick rather, that Des Moines means some monks, and that Fort Capelle means fort who is calling, or fort what is calling, which I think is very, very interesting. I've rambled enough, I think. This was the word thing. Thank you again so very much for inspiring me to do this little section here. I find it fascinating, and I had a lot of fun in reading the origins of those names, especially as I, at least for two of them, Baton Rouge and Des Moines, have learned them as a kid, and even as a French speaker, didn't even realize they were French words before my mom said, listen, why don't you just try and remember that you're French and you speak French before. Anyway, so this was my take on words in this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to say that this has been researched a little bit, but obviously because it comes from a long history, and especially oral origin history, some of this is completely controversial, or at least is still in question. Nothing is verified, but at least I can tell you that Des Moines means some monks, Baton Rouge means red pole, and that Fort Capelle means fort what is calling, which is actual facts at least. I hope that you enjoyed this. I will, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, add the little clip that I did on the word map of stitches, just to name each and every one of you, and thank you again for saying hi and wanting to be part of this adventure. Anyone who discovers my video, please, leave me a comment and let me know where you live, and I'll be so very happy to add you on this map. I wish you all a lovely Sunday. For those of you, some of you, it's just starting. For others, it's already very late in the evening. I hope to see you soon with some finishes maybe. And in the meantime, stitch well, be kind, au revoir. Here's the world map of stitchers. I wanted to thank you all so very much who have accepted to play along and sent me a lovely comment telling me where you live. So I want to say thank you again by acknowledging all of you that are now featuring in the world map of stitchers. I think what I'll do is go from the very far east from where I live to the very far west. So here we go. Out first in Asia Pacific, I want to say thank you to Tash, the star-crossed stitcher in Canberra, Australia, to Sparrow de Plume in Lower Hutt, New Zealand, to Susan in Tasmania, to Irene in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And then if we move to Europe, I want to say thank you and hello to Zvita in Kiev, Ukraine, to Coral in Prague, Czech Republic, to Sarah in Bornholm Island in Denmark, to Pia in South Finland and Virpi in Western Finland, to Magdalena in Sweden, to Mika, Darling Bluebell, Ingeborg, A Stitch Too Far, Debbie, Creatively Yours in Netherlands, and then to Margaret between Glasgow and Stirling in Scotland, to Elaine in Warrington, Cheshire, UK, to Moonbow Eve in Hampshire, UK, to Jill in Brighton, UK, to Julia in Lincoln, UK, and to Judy in Oxford, UK. And then if we move to the American continent, I want to say a big, big thank you to Jelly Pepper in Halifax, Nova Scotia, to Elise in Embrun, Ontario, Canada, to Crafty Kim in Toronto, Ontario, and then to Patricia in Kennebunk, Maine, to Jenny, Musical Stitches in Cambridge, Massachusetts, to Rosemary in South New Jersey, to Nikki Knickies in upstate New York, to Karen in Andalusia, Alabama, and then we've got the Georgia ladies, Kathy, Crafty Cat in Atlanta, Karen in Macon, and Dina Half Stitch Cross Stitch in Georgia as well. And then there's Beth in Louisville, Kentucky, Darlene in Baltimore, Maryland, Megan, Wide-Eyed Stitching Child in Havre de Grace, which is a lovely name, Maryland again, Pam in Mount Airy, and Jan Hicks, who for the time being is in Maryland, but hopefully will soon be moving in the middle of the Pacific Ocean in Hawaii, which sounds very exciting, and I will love having a pin there once she's moved. I also want to say thank you to Dory in Raleigh, North Carolina, to Peggy in North Kentucky, to Sarah in Roanoke, Virginia, to Paula in Wichita, Kansas, to Leah, Aviatrix Stitcher in the Midwest, to Suzette, Primitive Stitcher in Columbia, Missouri, to Kathy in Omaha, Nebraska, to Julie in North Arkansas, to Vicky in the Austin area, Texas, to Janice in San Antonio, Texas, and then if we move to the very west coast, I also want to say thank you very much to Sharon in Surrey, British Columbia, Canada, to S. Arneson in Fort Capel, Saskatchewan, Canada as well, and then to Michelle Garrett Bendy Stitchy in Eugene, Oregon, to Annette California Stitcher in San Francisco, to Keen in San Jose, California, and last but certainly not least to Rebecca in Guadalajara, Mexico. So to all of you, thank you so very much for being around. It gives me great joy to be able to travel around the world thanks to you, and think of you all.